To complete week 9, just want to talk about TSSA boiler mandate. So I'll give you a little background story about, it'll be about 15, 20 years ago. Family in Fort Erie, Ontario, down near Niagara Falls on Lake Erie. They succumbed to carbon monoxide, and entire family of I think it was a mother and a father and two children died in their house in their beds from carbon monoxide poisoning. And the investigation by back then TSSA and the Ontario Fuel uh, or the fire guys did investigation and found that their boiler was completely plugged up with drywall dust. All the burners were and carboned up to a point where it actually plugged off the chimney and all the flue gases rolled out into the house. So they investigated a little further and found that the father was doing a bunch of renovations in the early fall of that year, and the boiler was occasionally coming on and burning. And as you can realize and know and have been taught, that there's a lot of air that's being used by a boiler for combustion, 15 to 1 for the amount of gas that's being used. So 15 cubic feet of air for every cubic foot of natural gas. And if you had a big boiler heating a house, you could see that there'd be a lot of air being brought in. What happened was, because of the type of burner it was, a ribbon burner, these ribbon burners got plugged off with drywall dust and started actually not combusting, but creating carbon monoxide and carbon, and the boiler got carboned up. So as the winter dragged on, there's more and more carbon being developed. And I forget what time of year it was, doesn't matter, but the family, for 2 days, no one had seen the family. The parents hadn't reported to work, and they finally sent in the cops or family or whatever, and found that the family had expired. So it was a lot of changes to different codes and that are based on things that have happened in the industry. I sat on the council for the furnace certification for about 10 years, and any changes to a high efficiency or mid efficiency furnace was dictated based on people either killing themselves or randomly getting hurt. So TSSA came out with a mandate. Well, I'm going to go over that mandate with you, and that mandate is now in the B149 in the Ontario versions. So let's just that's your little bit of background story, and we'll kind of read through this. So I had take a photo, took a shot of this here. So it's 7.1.12. So it's a little bit of the code that we're going to talk about. But mandatory safety checks for residential, one or two family dwelling, natural draft boilers equipped with draft hoods of 300,000 BTUs or less. That's basically a natural draft boiler that is installed in a residential house. You probably won't see anything over 200,000 BTUs in a house. Maybe even 150,000 BTUs is a huge boiler in a house. So they've mandated anything less than that. So here's what they're saying that you have to do as a gas fitter. So these are a code that you have to abide by as a gas fitter. When you guys rate your G2, actually as a G1, you'll see that it's effective that you have to do this. 7.1.12, 12.1. During each heating season, effectively between October 15th and April 30th, when a certified G1, G2, G3, or GUT gas technician enters a residential building intended for one or two families to carry out service, maintenance, or emergency work within the scope of his or her certificate, the gas technician shall. So this is what you shall do. Now, here's the thing. You walked in the house to work on a water heater, you're looking at the boiler. You walked in the house to work on a barbecue, you're looking at a boiler. As soon as you walk into a house, you're responsible for all of the gas appliances that are in that house. Even if you went outside to hook up a barbecue and never went in the house, you are now responsible that if anything happens in that house at that time. So what your mandate is as a gas fitter is to make sure that everything is safe at the time that you're there. If something happens after you leave, then you are not really liable for that. But at the time that you are there, you must make sure that it's at least safe. Now, you're not doing a maintenance thing. The only thing is if you notice that it's a boiler of 300,000 BTUs or less, as a gas fitter, doesn't matter what you're doing in that house, you have to do an inspection on that boiler. So let's take a look at that, what that lays out. Determine if a natural draft boiler equipped with a draft control device, so a draft hood, with an input less than 300,000 is installed in the building where the boiler is installed. The gas technician shall take the following steps unless a valid boiler inspection label is identified in paragraphs E and F affixed to the boiler. If someone has already come in and checked that boiler for that year, you do not have to do this check. A, the gas technician shall provide a homeowner with a user information sheet. There's a sheet that you have to print out that outlines the technician's requirement to inspect and take corrective action when necessary, and the homeowner's responsibility to properly maintain their fuel burning equipment. So if you go in to work on a barbecue and you say, I have to take a look at your boiler, and they say, I didn't hire you to look at my boiler. You say, as a gas fitter, I am liable for all the gas appliances in your house. I'm just going to take a look, and if you, I'm going to do a check on this boiler if it needs a check. So that's where that Annex M or Schedule A outlines. It's a piece of paper that you can give to the homeowner saying that you are liable for this because you're a gas fitter. The gas technician shall take a CO reading in the flue gas upstream of the draft control device. That's between the heat exchanger and the draft hood, not after the draft hood. If it's after the draft hood, the reading you're taking is what we call diluted because it's got lots of dilution air coming in. So we're taking it before the draft hood. You're taking a carbon monoxide reading. Okay, let me just read here. If the CO reading exceeds 100 parts per million, the boiler shall be considered an immediate hazard and the gas technician shall take immediate corrective action to address the concerns, including, but not limited to, cleaning the boiler flue passage or cleaning the burner. If the boiler operation cannot be corrected so that the reading is below 100 parts per million, immediately shut off the fuel supply to the boiler. So you either fix the boiler so it's less than 100 parts per million, or you shut the boiler off. Please provide notice to the user and distributor and affix a notice to the boiler as outlined in the Ontario Regulation 22.1/01 gaseous fuels. So this is where you're going to fire up the boiler, you're going to do a flue gas inspection, you're going to do a carbon monoxide reading, and if it's less than 100, you're good to go. You'll fill out a form. If it's more, you make corrections if you can. If it cannot be corrected or the homeowner says, I don't want you to work on it, you will shut off the gas supply. The gas technician shall visually inspect the boiler for safe operation. If there are signs of spillage, such as discoloration on the burner door near the draft control device or excessive moisture in the boiler room, a depressurization test as outlined in Annex M schedule shall be performed. If the test demonstrates there's a depressurization issue, then appropriate action is adding adequate combustion and makeup air. You guys have taken venting, so under this scenario here, you'll want to make sure that there's no negative pressure in the house that's pulling the flue gases back down. Right? That's what that's looking for. A carbon monoxide alarm certified to the TSSA mandate shall be installed in accordance with the carbon monoxide installation instructions and located in the sleeping area or adjacent to the sleeping area of every suite of the home. So one of the things is you have to make sure they have a carbon monoxide alarm. It has to be affixed not in the boiler room because you're not trying to wake the boiler up. You want to fix it in the sleeping quarters or near the hallway of the sleeping quarters to wake up the individuals if it sees carbon monoxide in that area. The boiler operation is satisfactory and found with a CO reading below 100 parts per million. And the CO alarms installed. The boiler inspection tag shall be affixed to the boiler. There's an inspection tag that will say your company name, your gas fitter ticket, and all the things that you found. Now, that tag is affixed to the boiler. So if you got another guy comes in next week, he's not doing the same operation. Also, if you walk in and you have a valid tag on that boiler, you are now not responsible to take another look at that boiler. The boiler inspection tag affixed to the boiler shall expire on May 1st, the following the completion of this requirement. So, as you can see, anytime you walk into a house, you have a residential boiler that is below 300,000 with a draft hood. You have to do a carbon monoxide test and prove whether it is good or bad. If it's good, hang a tag. If it's bad, make the change so it doesn't produce carbon monoxide, or shut the unit off. As soon as you shut off a gas to the appliance by the shut off on the gas valve, on the gas train or the gas piping, you have rendered that appliance inoperable. When you put your stuff on in your work order, when you write down in your work order what you've done, that's where you will make notes. You will also affix what's called a infraction tag, and that would be an A infraction, which would mean unsafe appliance. So at that point, you would write that down and affix that and submit that to the utility, would it be Enbridge or Union Gas or whoever it is. So this is a mandate for boilers that has been ongoing since, I'm going to say about 10, 12 years, maybe 15 years since that family died in Fort Erie. This will continue to stay in the code requirements as long as these boilers exist. Most of these boilers, you will not find natural draft boilers being bought or installed. They're usually older boilers. We're just making sure that everything is done appropriately. So that's pretty well it for the TSSA mandate. The last page of this is, I just want to do under your assignments, there'll be a reference this week's remote class and then you can complete the assignment much like you have done every other week. So that'll be pretty well it today. The only other thing I might want to recommend here is you have to do this inspection every year between October 15th and 30th. If it's after that, you will that tag is only good for that time, so it has to be done yearly. Now, if you don't go to that house for 3 years, that doesn't mean you have to go back to that house every year. But the homeowners are usually advised on what issues they have with that type of boiler, and a lot of them are changing out those boilers and putting wall-hung boilers and that type of thing. So that'll conclude today's lesson. Hopefully you guys read this watch this video, and we'll go from there. Great, thanks.